$1.8 million that's going to be divided between Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, and her organization Fair Fight, which is working to mobilize and engage voters. So certainly all eyes on Georgia as it could determine whether Republicans are able to maintain control of the Senate. And we'll know that answer come January when this race heads to a runoff. Lindsay?
Priscilla Thompson in a very rainy Atlanta. Thank you so much. Hours after the Supreme Court heard arguments in a case that could upend the Affordable Care Act, President-elect Biden spoke about his plans to expand the signature Obama-era legislation. But with the Trump administration not acknowledging Mr. Biden's win, there are concerns about what that could mean for national security. Here's NBC's Peter Alexander.
President-elect Joe Biden delivering a blunt assessment of President Trump's refusal to concede.
It's an embarrassment, quite frankly.
Biden urging calm even as the president repeats unsubstantiated claims of widespread voter fraud. The Trump administration is yet to formally recognize Biden as president-elect, stalling the release of federal money for a presidential transition and critical access to classified intelligence. Still, Biden says his team is moving forward unfazed.
The fact that they're not willing to acknowledge we won at this point is not of much consequence in our planning.
So far, Biden's heard from more world leaders congratulating him than Republican senators, many still towing the president's line, despite Biden's projected victory in the Electoral College. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo echoing the president's unfounded claim that he'll win.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
While the Senate's top Republican Mitch McConnell says there's no reason for alarm.
At some point here, we'll find out, finally, who was certified in each of these states, and the Electoral College will determine the winner, and that person will be sworn in on January 20th. No reason for alarm.
Democrats argue denying Biden access to intelligence could damage America's national security.
It frankly provides an avenue for our adversaries around the world to try to take advantage of this vacuum and of an administration that may not have all the information it needs.
In 2000, the legal fight over less than 600 votes in a single state, Florida, delayed the transition between the Clinton and Bush administrations by 37 days. The 9/11 Commission that examined the 2001 terror attacks found that loss of time slowed the Bush team from identifying, recruiting, clearing, and obtaining confirmation for key appointees. The commission recommending that future presidents-elect be provided as soon as possible with detailed summaries of national security threats. Biden downplaying concerns about the current delay.
Access to classified information is useful, but I'm not in a position to make any decisions on those issues anyway.
This morning, President Trump made his first public appearance since the election results were called, attending a Veterans Day ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery with the First Lady. He did not speak with the press. Let's get into what's happening behind the scenes at the White House and on Capitol Hill. Joining me now, NBC News political reporter Monica Alba from Washington, D.C., NBC News correspondent Leanne Caldwell from Capitol Hill, and NBC News legal analyst Nate Persily. He's also a professor of law at Stanford Law School and a former senior research director for the Presidential Commission on Election Administration. So, Monica, let's start with you. We saw the president today for the first time in almost a week in any official capacity. He didn't speak to the press, which isn't necessarily unusual for these types of ceremonies. But boy, is he still firing off on Twitter. What's his strategy?
That's exactly right, Lindsay. Plenty of bluster on his social media page, continuing to claim baseless things about the election that he lost, quite frankly, over the weekend, even though he hasn't come to terms with that in any public-facing role. We're told that aides and allies are having difficult and candid conversations with him behind the scenes, urging him to accept and come to terms with this reality because they argue for him, he should be considering his legacy and how he's viewed. And the longer this is drawn out without him conceding the election, the worse it could be. We understand still, however, the president doesn't have any intention to formally concede this race, but he will ultimately be leaving the White House, and President-elect Joe Biden will be the one sworn in on January 20th. What we are hearing now from White House officials, essentially, Lindsay, is that this situation is unsustainable. And as you look to the weeks ahead and when these battleground states are going to certify their results, there really is no hope that then any outcome or anything will change here now. But the Trump campaign for it here, as Democrats have been saying for days now. But the Trump campaign, for its part, officially comes to an end on November 15th, just a few short days from now. Those staffers are all essentially looking for jobs now, accepting their fate and the reality that this phase is over. And the president, while at Arlington did not make any remarks, could make remarks later today or tomorrow. It is extremely rare, though, for him not to be calling into any of his conservative media outlets to talk or to speak with reporters in what you note is a week tomorrow if he doesn't do that.
Well, Leanne, we know the Senate is out today for the holiday, for the observance of Veterans Day. But kind of picking up on what Monica said about not coming to terms, yesterday there were still some on the Hill who still wouldn't admit that Biden won the race. Let's listen.
Senators, did Vice President Biden win the election?
We don't know yet, dude. They haven't been certified.
Senator, have you congratulated Vice President Biden yet?
No.
Why not?
The president wasn't defeated by huge numbers. In fact, he may not have been defeated at all.
Leanne, help me out here. How much longer do you see this going on for, and how do they see this benefiting them?
Well, Lindsay, there are a couple deadlines. There's the deadlines that the states have to certify their elections, and then there's the deadline of December 14th when the electors formalize who won the presidency. And that's what a lot of these Senate Republicans are hinging it on. They're saying that the president has a right now to challenge this in the courts, and that a time will come, there is a deadline for this to be resolved. Some of these Senate Republicans are also hinging on the fact that the courts do resolve this. It's obviously putting them in a very difficult position, as they know privately that that Vice President Biden is the president-elect. But sources are telling me that these Senate Republicans are getting a lot of pressure from their constituents, from the Republican base back home. They're getting calls into their office demanding that they stand up to the president and fight this process, which a lot of his supporters think are illegitimate. And so these Senate Republicans, there's not a lot of leadership happening here. They're kowtowing to the president and to the base going along with this. And they're hoping that the courts do come down with a decision relatively soon so that they can move on with this, Lindsay.
So, Nate, the New York Times, they reported today they called Republican and Democrat election officials from all 50 states, and none of them reported any voter irregularities. Does this debunk the Trump campaign's legal claims?
Well, they provided evidence that many of us knew even before they did the research. I don't think it's going to persuade people who were already thinking they were not just irregularities in one state, but a sort of massive set of irregularities in at least 3 states, some that are run by Republican election officials, some that are run by Democrats, so that in order to actually affect the outcome, you'd have to win a series of court cases with new theories based on new evidence that hasn't come to light yet.
Monica, campaign officials say President Trump is launching a leadership PAC. Why is this significant?
So this is really a way for the president to continue to raise money and funds for whatever potential political future he may decide to take on, whether that's as a kingmaker, essentially giving money to other candidates that he likes, that he feels have been loyal to him for future races, or whether he decides ultimately to run again for president, which is exactly what he can do after this first term and once he leaves office, if he decides to do so. So he has now launched a political action committee, which is called Save America. But the notable thing here is that the campaign is already seeking money for that. They are sending emails and texts to supporters under the guise of this election defense fund. But if you read the fine print, as much as 60% of those donations can actually go to this new group to fund future potential travel or rallies or whatever the president does once he is the former president, Lindsay. So it just sort of shows you how they are looking to and planning for a future once he leaves office.
Nate, help give us some context here. Without an official transfer of power, without Joe Biden getting these daily briefings, do you see right now, with the president firing top officials, do you see any legal recourse here for President-elect Biden, or do you think this is noise, there will be a peaceful transfer of power come January 20th?
Well, it's more than noise because it does have an effect on the ability to run the government once you take office on January 20th. So it's significant that they are unwilling to, for example, allow the General Services Administration to give the money and the resources to the transition. But it is it's not legally required, right? It's not, it's a norm that has existed ever since we've had these kinds of transitions. And, the fact that they're not allowing it just retards the ability of the Biden administration to hit the ground running. But I don't see any legal action that's going to force the Trump administration either to start the presidential daily briefings for the president-elect or to start giving the resources that he deserves.
All right, Monica Alba, Leanne Caldwell, Nate Persily, thank you so much to you three. We appreciate it. How is the delay in the transition affecting the Biden camp, and what does the public think about it? Here with more on that is NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Also joining us, Liz Goodwin, deputy bureau chief of the Boston Globe. Mark, we'll start with you. President-elect Joe Biden's MO really seems to appear calm, not seem bothered by the Trump administration's reluctance right now. Would you agree with that characterization, and do you think that that's strategic?
I actually think it's probably what he campaigned on doing. He said he was going to unify the country, work with Republicans, and, going tit for tat with the Trump administration over this would kind of belie that image. And so they are trying to play it for cool, at least for now. You ended up hearing President-elect Biden say yesterday that he wasn't thinking about any kind of legal action towards that General Services Administration move on not designating him as the winner to begin the transition. So I think they're lying low. The Biden aides also say, look, if there's anyone coming in who can hit the ground running already without all of these kind of attachments, it is Joe Biden, given his past experience and given that his incoming administration would be a lot of familiar faces.
So, Liz, we heard President-elect Biden say he doesn't worry about not getting these briefings yet because he's not yet the president. But we heard from Peter Alexander's reporting that 9/11 Commission said that if you have kind of a vacuum of this right now, there are potential national security concerns. What's the potential danger right now of not following this tradition?
Yeah, this is a really unusual situation. I mean, even before that 9/11 Commission report, during that transition, President Clinton did authorize George Bush to receive the presidential daily briefing. So this is just really uncharted territory in terms of president-elect kind of flying blind and potentially taking office without really knowing what any of the classified information in the national security situation is. And, national security experts, former Homeland Security chiefs are pretty united in saying this is a dangerous situation because transition periods are when countries can be sort of testing the U.S. and they know things are in flux and they're looking for weaknesses. And the fact that we're now in this sort of hostile transition situation would definitely leave openings for that.
And Mark, there are calls of widespread voter fraud, yet no evidence has been shown. And there's the U.S. postal worker who has said that they saw voter fraud, but then recanted. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, it came from reporting first from the Washington Post that one of the big allegations that the Trump campaign and his allies had been seizing on was a U.S. Postal Service worker in Erie, Pennsylvania, who said that there was an effort to date back certain ballots and having that something kind of a nefarious behavior. And the Washington Post reported and citing congressional investigators who were doing this, along with Postal Service investigators, that this Postal Service worker recanted that information. And to me, I think it's just the mounting evidence that all of these allegations that the president and his allies continue to have on this are incredibly flimsy. And of course, what is worth noting is that Joe Biden now has a lead combined in the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin by more than 200,000 votes. And so in being able to actually, number one, allege any kind of widespread fraud that has occurred, which there has been unsubstantiated, but two, then finding that to be able to reverse those hundreds of thousands of votes seems like a Herculean task.
Yeah, not only that margin of tens of thousands of votes here that we're talking about, but a Reuters Ipsos poll also says about 80% of Americans, this is Democrats and Republicans, believe that Joe Biden is the president-elect. So Right now, how damaging is it to the president and to Republicans if a majority of Americans accept the result, but they don't? Liz, I'll put that to you.
Yeah, I do think there is a danger here the longer it goes on, right? I think the president is making this calculation, and some of the Republicans who are parroting what he's saying, that this will keep their base fired up. They have, Senate special elections in Georgia to think about. They want people angry. Anger is a powerful emotion. It's a powerful motivator. But at what point does that start to backfire when it just looks like you are living in an alternate reality, you're being a sore loser, and you're also promising something you can't deliver? Some of these people really actually think that Trump can be declared the winner, and that there's just no path to that. Pretty much everyone who's looked at these legal cases agrees. And so when do you disappoint your voters, and what is the repercussions of that?
Mark Murray, Liz Goodwin, good to see you both. Thank you. The Trump appointee leading the federal agency charged with providing funding and more for a presidential transition is still refusing to start the process. Emily Hughes is the administrator of the General Services Administration, known as the GSA. She's responsible for officially recognizing the president-elect by issuing what's known as an ascertainment. For more on how this all works, we are joined by David Barham, who headed up the GSA in 2000. The last time a transition was delayed by all this legal wrangling. Mr. Barham, so good to see you. We're so happy you're with us. This week, a lot of Americans are likely learning about this agency for the first time. Tell us more about it.
About GSA. GSA is a very interesting organization that I really was privileged to be a part of. They provide, I would say the best way to think about it is the GSA provides business services to all the other federal agencies, and things like paper, tool, technology, vehicles, and a big chunk of it is building space. There are something like almost 400 million square feet of office space around the country that GSA then turns around and leases to federal agencies. So it's every agency needs GSA, and GSA really works hard to satisfy and even thrill those agencies. That's the main role of GSA. This part about the administrator ascertaining the apparent winner of the election is just a small part of it, although in the days surrounding the election and like right now, it's a big deal in the public's mind.
And you were appointed by President Clinton in '96. Then in 2000, you were the one responsible for handing over the keys to either Bush or Gore. Did you feel any kind of pressure to favor one candidate over another?
Absolutely not. Bill Clinton knew me and knew that I would do the right thing. John Podesta, who was his chief of staff, knew that also. I briefed John 2 or 3 times in that period to let him know what's going on, but I never received even the tiniest bit of pressure.
What's your take on what we're seeing right now, and how important is it for there to be adequate time for a transition?
Well, there's been a lot of people commenting and writing on that, and you just had 2 people talking about, I thought Liz Goodman's comments were right on about how more important it's going to get. I always have felt bad about that situation, but, Florida was in the balance with 537 votes, which is a tiny amount. We're talking about 200,000 or 300,000 now in the different states. So it really was clear to everyone. I mean, there might have been a few who thought George Bush had won clearly, but just about every awake American realized that it was too close to call. And the law was very clear to me. My job was to ascertain the apparent winner. It wasn't to make some kind of decision that felt better politically or not. I mean, I would like to have had Al Gore win, but that was never a consideration for me. So I think, in those days it was important, and I think it's even more important now. We've got the pandemic, we've got a financial problem in the country with the economy, and the pandemic needs to get fixed to make the economy work better. We've got to deal with climate change, and we've got, Vice President Gore, President-elect Biden has talked about the importance of racial justice too. So I think that there are more difficult problems today than there even were in 2000. So it's important to get going.
David,
But I'll say one other
quickly
thing.
before I let you go,
listened
if you were in Emily Hughes's shoes, would you already have delivered an ascertainment to President-elect Biden?
answer for Emily. I think she's really serious. It's Emily Murphy, by the way. I think
Thank you.
She really genuinely wants to do the right thing. But I'll say this. She's in a tough spot because I haven't seen more than about 1 or 2 leading Republicans who are giving her any cover at all. They're saying, they should be saying that, in spite of what Trump has been saying, they should be saying that this election has been won by Joe Biden. They're not making it really hard for Emily Murphy. I think in the end, she'll make the right decision. I hope the end is sooner than later.
David Barham, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for correcting me. Emily Murphy, current take top Pentagon roles.
Wind, show me where to go. Your fault.
Он уже сам говорит.
Ain't no killing this energy. Feel it from the spirit, them lyrics be hitting differently. Like 100 rhinos are riding on my arrival. We rising to get the victory. Turning dreams to
Проблем, что ли, не хватает, ну наоборот. Прибудование. Нет, у меня все нормально, просто, наверное, нет, наверное, заправка замирает. Замирает. Orgizden bu. такой ужас просто. Вроде нам он говорит уже, да, говорил. То здесь, не знаю. С понедельника начинается все, да. Болетный организм, его болит, потому что надо болеть.
Bionic Flying Fox. In motion, the robot unfolds its wings and alternates a flight phase with a glide. take their inspiration from animals to create new robots, especially from birds. In
Если вы видеоблогер, вам пора быть на моем месте в Яндекс.Дзене. Например, вот здесь мог быть ваш рецепт. Но пока другие блогеры Дзена учат пользователей печь, жарить и замораживать. Или объясняют, как выровнять и освежить цвет лица. Не хватает только вашего. Кто-то в Дзене уже показывает, как тренироваться. С весом, с детьми, даже с весом детей. А ваших мускулов в Дзене до сих пор нет. Переходите по ссылке и скорее...
In 2014, specialists from the University of Twente in the Netherlands joined the ranks of electronic bird creators. RoBird, produced by Clear Flight Solutions, is essentially a drone with the appearance of a hawk. The purpose of the machine is to provide a higher level of security at Edmonton Airport in Canada. The fact is that 8 million people come here each year, and the planes make 168,000 flights. Until 2014, birds were the main problem that had to be faced. As they flew into the airport, they crashed into the planes and hit the engines. Previously, lasers and sensors were used to deal with them, and the presence of birds in the area was accompanied by a special signal. The RoBird drone is a simpler and cheaper way to solve the problem. It imitates a raptor in the sky, and real birds don't dare approach for fear of the predator. Therefore, the self-preservation instinct prevents them from flying near the airport. The speed of the robot is 80 kilometers per hour. The drone flies under the control of an operator, but specialists are already working on the creation of an autonomous model.
Fixes that haven't quite been ironed out yet.
All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you so much for your reporting. The Trump administration continuing sweeping changes at the Defense Department, promoting several controversial candidates into top roles Tuesday. The move coming after President Trump fired Defense Secretary Mark Esper Monday, leading 3 top officials in the department to hand in their own resignations. NBC News national security correspondent Courtney Cubey joining us now. Courtney, so much going on. Talk us through some of these staffing changes. Deep breath.
Yeah, that's right. So as you mentioned, Lindsay, I know, deep breaths, right? As you mentioned, there were 3 resignations this week. And none of them were actually a huge surprise. So Jen Stewart, who was the chief of staff to Mark Esper, she resigned. Not a big surprise when your boss gets fired that you're probably going to leave as well. Retired Navy SEAL and Admiral Joe Kernan, he sort of headed up policy in the intelligence side of the Pentagon. He was also expected to retire at some point during this transition. He was one of the ones who left. One that was a little bit of a surprise was James Anderson. He was the head of policy for the department. It's one of the biggest jobs, civilian jobs in the building. He had had a number of clashes with the White House over issues. He resigned on Tuesday as well. But sort of the headline beyond that is who the White House put in to replace them. Retired Brigadier General Tony Tata. He will now be performing the duties of the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. The reason is he was actually nominated for the policy job several months ago, but he never went through Senate confirmation because it became very clear that the members of the Senate Armed Services Committee would never actually approve him. He's made a series of racist and anti-Muslim comments in the past. And the members made it clear that he never even went up for his actual confirmation hearing. He's been serving in the building, though, since earlier this year in a non-Senate confirmed position. So this is really a move for him. He's got a little more power now in this policy job, but he's not actually, he's already in the building. The second person, is the individual who replaced retired Admiral Joe Kernan, is Ezra Cohen Watnick. Now, you may remember.
Я не буду в игры играть. Зачем тебе это? Ты еще игры играй. Грегори. Седи дома, играй в игри, играй. Да ты что?
So this really has to be seen to
Эй, да ты что, блин?
So this really has to be seen to be believed. Donald Trump and Trumpists are now increasingly furious with Fox News, I guess because Fox admits that Joe Biden won, for example. And Fox News also cut away from a press conference yesterday with Trump's press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, because she was lying. And Neil Cavuto said, whoa, whoa, whoa. If she presents some evidence for these claims, we'll go back to it. But these are really serious allegations to be making about voter fraud. So the point is, Trump now and many Trumpists are furious with Fox News. And Trump has doubled down and humiliated himself even more, if you can imagine, by starting to tweet out clips of Newsmax. Now, if you haven't heard of Newsmax, good for you, first of all. Newsmax is sort of similar to OAN in some way. It's like a low-budget version of Fox News. Some people say it looks kind of like a porn parody of Fox News. They have massive integrity issues. They emailed their subscriber list during the pandemic saying the worst thing you could do is get a vaccine, because vaccines are one of the biggest scams among the American people. So you sort of get the idea of where Newsmax is. Trump now, I guess because he's furious with Fox News, regularly is tweeting out Newsmax clips, and you have to see it to believe it. They've set up interviews where it's not even clear that the anchor understands the questions. They almost look like infomercials where the anchor is sort of like, tell me all the ways in which this was stolen from Donald Trump. And then they just give some mouthpiece, uninterrupted time to just tell lies. Here's one with an RNC spokesperson on fraud claims.
What can we expect to see in court?
We will pursue every legal avenue, because what's going on right now is a total travesty. This is not the United States of America, where we have free and fair elections with legal votes cast, and that's who decides elections, not media organizations.
Now, I'm not going to play long clips. There's a lot more to this, but my suspicion is that exposure to too much of this drivel probably is bad for your health. I don't want to do that to the audience, so I'm going to keep the clips pretty short. Here's another one with, actually, this is with Congressman Jody Hice. I'll talk to you about Jody Hice in a moment. But this was around the time Trump tweeted he's going to win Georgia. Yesterday, I don't mean on election day. Yesterday, Trump tweeted he's going to win Georgia. And here is Congressman Jody Hice claiming the same thing because of either reporting or recording or who even knows what. Take a look.
It's very close, and quite frankly, I believe it's on the verge of getting a lot closer. Fulton County just came out just within the last hour or so, recognizing that they have a significant issue on reporting that they did on Friday. WXIA, the NBC television affiliate, is already saying that this is significantly going to change the count in favor of President Trump. At the same time, Gwinnett County has come out in the last hour or so indicating that they likewise have some glitches.
Now that congressman there, Jody Hice, he's a disgusting guy. Back in, it was 2014, he claimed that there was a gay plot to sodomize your children. And also in 2014 said his belief is that women need their husband's permission to enter politics. That's Jody Hice, who was interviewed on Newsmax and then signal boosted by Donald Trump. And then here is Trump flunky Richard Grenell. You might remember Richard Grenell from the RNC. He actually spoke at the RNC, just claiming it's all fraud. Like it's just, the entire thing is fraudulent. Every single one of these videos I've played for you so far has been flagged by Twitter as disinformation about an election. Take a look.
That are now coming back to haunt us. Ballots that were mailed out of state, people saying, I haven't lived in Nevada for years. We saw more than 3,000 people who lived out of state get ballots. We've brought those to the authorities' attention. Many of those people have broken the residency requirements. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So whatever the outcome of the election is when it's certified, and it is not certified yet, and we still have tens of thousands of votes yet to be counted.
Just absolute, complete, and total nonsense. And it really, it's almost getting sad in more ways than we imagined. And if you are the president and all you have left is Newsmax clips to try to make it look like there are people who agree with you, just pack it up. Go and play golf the rest of your term. Joe Biden has already launched a coronavirus task force. Just announce you're turning over management of the virus to Joe Biden, the elect administration. Just go. And I believe it was Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, who said yesterday in an interview, he expects that at Christmas time, Trump will leave and go to, his resort in Florida or somewhere, and that he won't even come back to the White House. I think that's possible. Trump actually doing things as president may be over as we know it. There's nothing on his schedule. There hasn't been anything on his schedule on any day since the election. This may change, but Trump really may just be done, and he will just tweet about how he really won and then quietly disappear around Christmas time. We don't yet know, but it's getting really, really embarrassing. Unless, and this is very important, unless Trump restarts his MAGA rallies. And there is a report claiming he plans to do that. And I want to talk about that now.
Нормально. Носики. Отдельно все равно. искусственный интеллект в доту выиграл, представляешь? Например. Но это было еще 2 года назад, если не Андрей просто. Типа непобедимый. Офигеть. Ну да. Неожиданная вообще стратегия. Типа, ну вот что. Ну как бы все просчитано там уже было, да. Ну, ну, типа, да. Ну, наоборот, да. Заребский Интель. Судья. Что-то я хотел посмотреть. Зарекся же. Почти пройден, там остался защита курсовой туда. Другой тоже там практика. Да. Дядюшки, пойдем. Нет, не занимаемся. Ладно, не надо. А, ну да, ну нет. Чё нам? Это здесь вообще что? Что ты это? Машбор. Aujourd'hui. И чё? Нет, это не надо. Чего нет наоборот? Ну нет, наоборот. Надо. Да нет. Ну да. Нет, на себя. А что такое? От кого-то. Ой. Бомбомиль. Биомобиль, какой бомбомиль. That's so sad. Так наоборот, как это? Ты хочешь сказать, что это не круто, что ли? Ты чё, не понимаешь? Александра Дурицова. Говорят, наоборот. Подарки. Это не подарки, это только рисунок такой там. Да. Ну ладно, это же твоя брата. Ладно, это же нормально. Ух ты. Обидно. Нет. Тянет тебя что ли на эти? Нет. Не тянет. Не тянет. Нет, так что ты, блин? Я не тоже. Космонавты, бля. Нет, наоборот, нет. Молодая, наверное. Че? Кто здесь? Книгом лицом. Давай книгу. Самая главная книга у них. Книга, да. Лицом. А, так вот так книга. Нет. Нет, он растягивает. Ну да. Солен. Эрцам. Нет, так нет, наоборот, нет. Это... Шашлык, нет? А чего это так? Чё так? Это нехорошо как-то, что ли? Ничего. Там нехорошо, у вас коронавирус. Легкий, это самое. Ну ладно. А что они там? Это просто уже там алгоритм чисто этот самый. Ну, это вроде человеческое. Это вообще непонятно. Ну, такое дело, ладно. Пусть не будет. Наоборот, да, понял, да. Типа, ну вот это есть оно. А что, было девчонкам нравится одеты или как это сказать? Обожал. Что это? Зачем? Ну, испанское. Ой, прям нет, нормально все. Нет, нормально. Не похоже, по-моему. В этом сделано. Скоро вообще все в редакторе вообще нужно. То есть, да, даже не заморачиваться. Ну, нет, никак не думаю, что это так надо. Ну, то есть, здесь еще люди. Нормально. Какую еще вестовую книгу? Что это? Тут вообще с этих? Никакого контроля вообще нет. Видите, опять что ли, зачем? А зачем она не блокируется-то? Ну, вопрос случайно был. Не делайте, лучше не делайте, лучше. Ладно. Ой. Ща, мне спится. Да, когда есть он самый тогда. Да, наоборот, не надо тебя это. Чё наши проблемы? Чё вам нравится? Чё вам нравится? Что только нет это? Бревужение. Тортилья, какая же тортилья? Нет, он бывает так говорит. Продукты, богубань, не богубань, нет, не умеет он говорить. Нормально, чтобы было надо. Access. Все ладно, пора. Зачем пойдешь туда? Что-то еще смотреть надо, да? Посмотреть, да, что-то еще. А, ну да, проверить. Все-таки проверил. Ну ты что здесь придумал? Какая тебе разница? Ну давайте не надо, придумал. Ну что дальше? Ничего себе, надо посмотреть. PayPal. Зайти на PayPal, что ли? Ну, посмотрим, давай на Move вот это вот. PayPal. Что тут ничего не видно? Не сдвинул его. Кондоминio. Там ничего нету, что ты смотришь там? Ты кто нам такой синий был? Кто такой синий? Он про это говорит, Ты чё? Чё такое? Ну ты смотри. Интересно, какой червец, смотри. Слушай. Ну и что? Я даже не поверил, кстати. Что там такой синий? Что там такой синий? О, смотри, как меня видно, кажется, короче. Даже не посмотрел эту штучку. Дай немного. Вот это, вот это было. Здесь могут anymore.